Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Franchising the Novak brand. Going to talk about it today. London, Paris, New York, and DY. Who knows? Over to you, Mr. BURGIO.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael BURGIO, Mark Novak, episode 446. Franchising in general, I think we'll touch on, but specifically franchising the Novak brand. I think it would be probably one of Mark's top questions asked by everyone. When would you franchise? Why would when will you? Are you going to? Why wouldn't you? So we thought we'll talk about it. So in the future, Mark can just send people the link to the video.
Don't answer the question. Here's my link.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
The question goes to you.
Question goes to me.
What do you
Mr. Well, first of all, there's huge benefits. There's the ingredients of the cake is mixed already. You know the premix. You've got a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the marketing in place. The brand's there. How easy is it just to cookie cut and push it out there into the marketplace? And I guess it's a fair question that people always ask us. And they're always saying, look, why don't you? And there's so many different parts of Sydney. So we're servicing northern beaches, inner west, eastern suburbs, living out toward that way, western suburbs, inner city. And they're going, why aren't you just franchising it? Why?
And
why don't we franchise it?
Well, there's probably a couple. There's always, the more officers, the more headaches. You basically double everything. You're doubling staff, you're doubling printers, you're doubling two premises. So it depends on what model you want to work under as well. I think some people go into it with a naive look and go, oh, double the officers, double the money. But that's not necessarily the case as well, especially if we're already operating across all of Northern Beaches anyway. What is that advantage of having another office somewhere else, especially with online?
Well, yeah, particularly with online, I guess, a good saying is I'm happy to live in the world and not try to own it. It's I guess the Northern Beaches I've grew up there. Our sort of family is there. Majority of our family, our tribe, our friends, and that sort of stuff. And I think a part of real estate is very, very relationship based. So part of what I love about my business is not just the marketing side and the branding side and the social and all that and that fun, but it's actually the people. And I think probably sounds a bit corny and stuff, but I actually really love the area that I work, and wouldn't want to change it. Like it's exciting, but I think distinctly it's a completely different business, and people have got to remember that. It's great to say, look, that's easy, just franchise it, but you really are getting into, it's the same industry, but it's a different business, and you're starting to maintain standards that a lot of them are not within your control or even within your area to control. So it's just a completely different model. I'd love to hear anyone's comments today to see what you think of that potential of franchising, of franchising. But I think, putting that brand out there in the marketplace, I get asked all the time by friends and family out there. They're going, why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? Sounds like the obvious choice, but, I guess just also being happy with yourself, just being happy. It's like for Elisa and I, it's like, well, what more would that bring? Do you know what I mean? Like, is the risk versus the happiness, and it's like we actually really like what we do and sort of where we are in our business, and when that that added layer of franchising out? Like, what's really going to change?
Yeah, and just so Sean says, good morning, Philip. Good morning, evening. I think Philip's in England, so evening for him. Luke says, scale. Good day, Michelle. Keep the focus.
Scale.
All comes down to way of life, international or Novak. And I think that's a good point as well with the scale. The only really, you wouldn't franchise it, as you said, separate business, is if you're going to franchise it, then you're bringing in partners. You wouldn't just, there's no real point franchising it to keep the same structure, because then you're actually going to split your attention. Instead of being solely focused on one office, then it's going to be split. So then that's just, and unless you've got, because most companies who then franchise it, they actually have partners who buy in and they run that office. So then in theory, then they're going to have two people with the sole focus. There's no real benefit if you don't want to go down that avenue of partners, and there actually is no benefit to franchising it. If anything, it'd be a detriment, one, to the way of life, but also you won't be able to scale it out. And I think anyone who owns a business, unless you have someone who's got stake in the business, it's never run the same. Like if you're making coffees, like the owner who's hands-on compared to having just an employee. You ask many people in the restaurant game, the owner's got to be there basically, whoever's got the biggest stake on the floor. There's a big difference on how it's run. So that's the main thing. You wouldn't just open up another store in Monavale just for the sake of it, and then you have, say, you and Lisa split between two. It'd be worse.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder, Burge, is it ego? Do you know what I mean? Like, are people people doing it for ego, where are they genuinely doing it to prosper and do better, or are they doing it for ego? Because, certainly I think with franchising, our name out there is like, really, what is the benefit? And it probably sounds, I don't mean to sound spiritual or anything, but it's, what's your key belief system? What are your key beliefs? And is that part of your key beliefs to go to a second, 10th, 20th office under the same brand? And, what are you actually in the business for? It's, I guess we never got into business for sort of worldwide domination. It was always about putting kids through school. It was always about family, and bit of holidays as well, and a good balance. So I think for that, like, it does that, and I do find even getting behind your crew. So rather than trying to build your second, third, and fourth office, I like the fact just to get behind your crew in the office, your A team in your office and your B team in your office, and get behind those guys and build those guys. And in turn, building those guys builds up anyway. It's scalable.
Yeah. Well, I think the only thing is the people in our area, the people who have done the other office, they've done it with one of their crew to start it up with them. So builds them up that way. So it's all different.
Yeah, I think, but also when they've done it with that crew, it's very rare in the Northern Beaches that we've seen a second or third office succeed over the last 50 years. Like, it doesn't seem. They always tend to peel out to two or three, and then they peel back to one all the time. But I can't see why that can't be done behind. And I agree with what you're saying. Like, to get behind another partner and say, okay, we're going to go out to a different area. But I don't understand why those people still can't work under one roof.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely possible. But there's always street frontage in the area.
Yeah, if there's enough oxygen. It's true. And that is why
Michelle,
the franchise.
It's your name, it's your baby, it's your focus. No one will run love it with the same passion. No one will run it like you do, unless you can done yourself. and is it worth it? Love your family, love life, family, all the wealth you need. Very true. That's sort of what you're saying before, Mark, with holidays, balance.
Yeah, and also when I find it happens a lot when you see like an institution business. Like I look at the Harry's DeWheel, down the cross. Have you been that hot dog Harry's DeWheels in the cross?
Mm.
Negative.
No, that's not the pie shop near the Navy base.
Yeah. So, you go down there and you see it's just got it's this institution, it's this incredible business. And then you've seen they've tried to open in different parts of Sydney and you're like, nah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just never, these institutional style businesses, which I love going to, but often when they open up, those 10 offices or 20 offices, I think what was the donut Krispy Kremes,
Yes.
and they open up and they had that one sick place and you used to get him and then suddenly they were in.
It was almost like the ritual. You went to the airport, you got them, and then when it sort of, and it was almost, it was almost what made it special was how rare it was, but it's also the airport, being at the airport vibe. Either you're leaving or you're coming back or a loved one's going or leaving, and then you have that reward. It's part of the whole package. But
Why
then when
not?
you just go to the 7-Eleven and pick it up, it's a very different experience. And I think they were associated with that for a very long time, especially when you would drive out to the actual place and watch them being made. It was very interesting.
I don't know what that is, but I also feel that that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? I think that I really like that, and I think going into a multi-office franchising out the Novak brand, I think it's the same thing there. Like, it works. Everyone does very well under the banner. It pays a lot of people's bills, and you think, why would you sort of mess with that? It's going good, and I guess it's a brand that's been around for 20 years. I think people don't really realise that. But it can easily and comfortably the next 20 years, 30 years, just keep pumping, doing what it does for the people, serving the Northern Beaches community, and that's its function. And when I was having a chat to a mate yesterday who brought me on to think about it, I think that there's so many other functions in your life. It doesn't have to be that one that takes over everything. Your world, your life and stuff like that. There's family, there's travels, there's investments, property investments and stuff like that one does. And I think, you instead of putting all of your eggs in that one franchising basket, I think it's nice to have a good balance on everything else that you do as well.
I also think the big thing is saying what you said before. It's a separate business. You see that all the time with like tradies. They go from being a great built carpenter then to running the business. It's totally different. And there's a lot of people who can make great furniture but can't run a business for shit, or vice versa, can't make anything but can run a great building business. So as you said, if you went franchising, it's a different business and model. It's you almost throw out what you've known, well, not throw out, but you're learning something totally new.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's I think there's a beauty in seeing that tradie do what he does best. You know what I mean? Like I see Deegan, our plumber, and he's been working with us for 17 years, and like he has been the most rock solid trade we've ever witnessed in our business. And I've always said to him, why don't you get an apprentice, or why don't you put on another ute, or why don't you do that? He's like, nah.
Yeah.
And mate, he's probably the most organised guy, one of the most organised military precision guys I know. So nah. He's just had this beautiful business, this beautiful family. He's sort of hit all the markers in his life that he wanted to, and that's what he did. No need to, bigger, better, stronger. He made different types of investments in family, in his mates, and he makes beer. And I think that's really, really cool. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just about, okay, now we're going to put on 2 trucks, now we're going to put on 10 trucks, now we're going to put on 20 trucks. And then next thing you know, one's divorced and this and that. And you think, what's important?
You see that people do that all the time. They almost feel like if their business is doing well, they're obligated to grow it. It's very hard to do well and keep it the same size. You almost feel guilty, or you have to do it well. You see it all the time with a great restaurant, as you said, with Harry's. They did one well, which if they just stayed with that and focus money elsewhere, or the attention elsewhere, or life, rather than now this is doing so well, let's open a second, third, fourth. It doesn't go so well, and before they know it, they don't know where they are. I think that, as you said with Deegan, there's an artwork and a beauty in it's almost like staying true to what your original plan was. Like if someone opens up, let's say Harry's, for example, they probably didn't plan to open up 4 or 5. They had a very modest, let's do this, let's earn this, and this will enable us to do that. And then it does well, does better, and before you know it, they almost feel like they've got to do more. And then 10 years pass, and they're like, shit, how did we get to here when all we wanted to do was here, and we haven't seen the kids in 10 years because we've gone off track, where this was supposed to earn X amount, pay for these things, and we got carried away in the constant grow. Like I think there's a difference between standing still. I don't know how to put it in words, but you're not going forward as in opening more businesses, but you're not going backwards, but you're sort of just working on where you are, fine-tuning where you are, refining, but not necessarily adding businesses or shops or staff.
Yeah. It's soul building stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just, building your pockets. I think it's building what's actually important to you, and that's different for everyone. What makes everyone click and what makes everyone happy. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. There's some amazing businesses in Sydney that we've seen. Like, what I'm interested with, the Marrickville pork roll.
Yeah.
They've been running out of a toilet block for, I think, 20 years. Literally a toilet block.
12 square meters, little shop front, 3 little ladies crammed in there making hundreds of rolls, and
a queue right down the street all day long. Now they've gone into a premises 10 or 15 times bigger. I wish them well. Do you know what I mean? But it's whatever. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but it's just interesting.
Well, it's one of those things. You can imagine everyone in their ear saying, look how busy you are. Why don't you have a bigger shop? Look how many people stand out the front. Why don't you offer seating? Why? And now they are doing it, and it will either, you've seen that happen, and then they've overcapitalized. It's not as busy. Humans are very weird. There's, like, we all know there's some things in life, like the kebab shop in Manly. Later, you only eat there at that time. So if it was anywhere else, you wouldn't eat it. And people are interesting. So yeah.
Well, look at Bruno.
Yep. Flag shop stayed consistent.
Bruno is one of my best buddies in life, and he's 93, 94 years of age. He's been running he's been a cobbler for shoes. So fixing up ladies' handbags, fixing up ladies' shoes, fixing up men's shoes, when the sole wears out or breaks or whatever. And mate, 50 years. He's just sat there, and he's just like happily just sat there and done his thing and created a beautiful family. And that's what's made him happy. Very interesting guy. You'll find him on my socials if you search Bruno and Novak. He's got an incredible story, and boy has he had some fun with what makes him happy. So he loves investing in real estate. and exceptional man.
I think that's a wrap.
And that's why we haven't franchised.
Bye.
See you, bud.